Hi and welcome to my coding channel. My name is Anton, and in this video we are starting to define a convention about structuring React applications. This video is the first one of the React App Structuring video series, so you would definitely want to subscribe to this channel in order for not to miss out the next videos of the series, and not only them. Well, now about structuring the React application. As a starter code, we will continue using our application we were working on in my previous videos. Its starter code you can find in a public repository. The starter code as well as finished code I will also add to the video description. Now, the primary structuring unit of a React application is a module. To define our first module, we will need to create a folder for this module under the source directory. A module contains files that are related to some data entity it mainly works with. In this case, this module will be working with todos. Every module has its predefined internal structure, and one of its parts is components. Now I will want to define our first component of a to-do module. So we will just want to render the heading of the to-do list as a root component of a to-do module. So to create this component, we will need to add a folder and give it a name. For root components of the module, meaning the components that will contain all other components by convention, we are going to add a name main. All the modules must have at least two files under their folders. This is index.ts and the module file itself. Under the module file itself, we will define and export by default the component function. Due to the naming convention, we will name it. Its first part will contain the module name, and the second part the component name itself. The index.ts file is for default re-exporting of the module. The main components of a module can be also optionally re-exported from the components directory itself. And they can also be optionally re-exported from the module root itself. Now let's add some content to this module. We will just get this thing here into the module itself. We will wrap it into the React fragment and import what is missing. By the way, as you might have noticed, I'm not worried too much about the spacing and the other code styling stuff. It's because in our last video we have configured automatic code formatting for our application, so this part will be done for us automatically. Now we will want to import this code now here into the app component itself. But before doing that, let's do a quick tweak. In our tsconfig file, we will add the base URL property and assign SFC value to it. This will enable absolute imports for our application. And here is how it works. We're not going to have this relative symbols of relative imports before the file name here. And that's actually why we are naming the modules with capital letters. This way we are sure we are not going to have import collisions with third-party NPM dependencies. Well, now let's start this application in order to see what we have written so far. Alright, everything is working as expected. This means that we can make our first commit. Now when we have our first component of the to-do module, we will probably want to actually display a list of to-dos under our header. We will want each to-do to look in a standard way, with a checkbox and a label next to it. This code snippet we can borrow from the Material UI official site. Under the component checkbox section, we will want the checkbox with the label. This is what we would want to borrow. Now here we will just declare a common list and paste this code here. Alright, this seems to be working. Let's just remove the default list styling. And let's see how it would look like if we had some more to-dos. Yeah, I made a typo. Okay, so far we see that we started to duplicate this code here. It means that there is a reason to define another component that will represent an item for the to-do list. So let's define another component in the same way as the main one and call it just item. The component as the previous one will have its index.ts file and its main file. Also, each component can contain another files like test files or styling files. Well, but currently we are not using those. Let's reuse this code for our item component. We will want to import what is missing here. Alright, and we forgot to re-export the component by default. And now we can use it right here in the list itself. duplicate some of those. And yes, we can see everything is working fine, so why don't just commit this? But before committing, we will make sure that there are no imports that we don't need anymore. Okay, so this is how we defined two primary components of our new to-do module. Now I would want to talk about another component we can see here is the navigation bar. Here is its code. Obviously, the navbar doesn't semantically belong to a to-do module, nor it would belong to any other module. For such components and other parts of an application that don't belong to any module, we define a special module that by convention is called common. It has similar structure to any other module. For example, it can have the components folder, where we define our components in the same way that in other modules. For example, here we want to create a navigation bar component. The default export file and the component file itself. The naming convention is the same. We will want to reuse this code for our navigation bar component and to import what is missing. Sometimes the automatic import doesn't work, so we will do this manually, except what we explicitly don't need. Okay, so now we will want to re-export this component by default. And to actually apply it to our app component. So as we can see, everything still works as we expected it to. We just can remove the unused imports and to make a commit. Yeah, and that is about the structuring of React application, its modules and component part. If you like this tutorial, hit the like button. If you have some suggestions or questions about this React app structuring convention, please write them in comments. Also make sure you are subscribed to this channel in order to not miss out further videos of this video series and another content about web development. My name is Anton. Don't stop coding, don't stop growing.